Typically, when editing vectors, you will most likely use the transform tool. Now, in order to use the transform tool, you need to have the vectors selected. So at the moment, if you take a look on the left-hand side, this is the transform tool and it's currently grayed out. That's because I haven't got a vector selected. So if I select this vector here, you can see that it becomes active and I can select it. The shortcut for this is T on the keyboard. So if you have a vector selected, just press T on the keyboard and it will take you into this transform mode. So when you're in this transform mode, it will display a series of red round circles. There's also a green one and there's also a blue one. If I take a look in the 3D view, you get exactly the same thing. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you're working in the 2D view or the 3D view. Okay, go back to the 2D view. Now, first of all, I'd like to explain to you about the different cursors. So just ignore the right-hand side dialog box for a moment. We're not going to go into that just yet. Okay, so the cursors, if I hover outside of the actual bounding box of that vector, it becomes a rotation cursor. So if I left click and then drag, I can rotate it around. Okay. You can also put a snap on these. And in order to do so, what you do is you press Alt down on the keyboard. Okay, and that gives you a 15-degree angle snap. Now, if I were to do this in the 3D view, it actually gives me a preview. So if I hold down Alt down on the keyboard, it gives me this preview of all of the points that I can go to. So hold Alt down and it gives you this angle snap. So if I go back to the 2D view, if I go inside of this box, you can see that the cursor changes again. So if I left click here, what I can do now is drag it around, okay? And I can move the actual part that I've got there. Exactly the same thing in the 3D view. Now, if I wanted to, and when I move around like so, I can press Control down on the keyboard. If I press Control, it will create a copy. Okay? And I can do as many of these as I'd like. So if I hold Control down, it just creates copies. Okay? So I'll just undo that, go back into the transform. This green circle here, this allows me to rotate, okay, exactly the same as what I was doing earlier on the outside. Now, this one here, this changes the rotation point or the origin position, okay. Now, this is useful not only for rotating, but also for moving it, okay. So if I were to grab that and move that down to there, this now rotates around that point. Okay, so let's undo that. And if I want to put that back into the center, I can either grab it and it will lock to the center like so, or I can select any of these points here, okay, and it will change it. We also have these red circles on the corners and at the midpoints. So these allow you to just resize the actual vector. Okay, so if I click at the top, brings it down, the side, brings it in, and you can change the size of it. If you want to do this and maintain a ratio, or you want to do both in one go, select one of the corners and you can bring that down. You can see at the moment it's changing both sides of this differently. So if you want to maintain that aspect ratio, if you press Shift down on the keyboard, and it will maintain that aspect ratio. Now, this will go from the bottom left, as you can see here. If you don't want that, most of the time you want this to work from the center. So if you want it to work from the center, press Alt on the keyboard as well. So I'm pressing Shift and Alt at the same time now. Okay, and this is resizing from the center. Now you can also do this on the right hand side, and I'll show you in a moment. So the other two circles basically skew the object. So if I select that left one there, you can see that this skews the object. So I can go up or down like so, and then I can do it that way. So it skews it left to right. Okay. Right, so let's take a look at this dialog box. So the dialog box pretty much does exactly what I've just done, but you can enter figures. Okay, so let's say that I wanted to change the width of this to actually be 7 inches. So I change that to 7 and select apply, and it changes the size of it. Okay, if I wanted, let's say that to be 7, I could do that and apply. So it's 7 by 7. Now, let's say that I wanted this to be 8 inches and I didn't want to type in the second one, and I wanted it to basically maintain that aspect ratio. Click on this padlock here, and then you can see these are now locked. So if I were to change that to 8, you can see that the height has changed also. And then I can apply, it all moves as one. Now, the origin position, if I, let's say, select that to be at the bottom left there, and let's say that I want to move this so it's in from my sheet, or so when I want to machine it, it's just in, let's say, a ½ inch. So if I go -6, this will put this right onto the edge because it's 12 by 12. So if I go -6 there, bring that down. So this is bang on that edge of this piece of material. So what I can do is bring it in. So let's say -5.75, and again here. And it basically moves it in by 1/4 inch. Now this is a lot easier if you have your origin set to be the bottom left, because that will always be 0, 0. Okay, and you can just enter 1/4 inch in here. Okay, you can also move. So let's say that I wanted to move this 1 inch in X. Select apply, and it moves it 1 inch. I can repeat it, and it will move again. I want to move that up by 1 inch. Select apply, and it will go up by 1 inch. You can also rotate it here. So let's say 45 degrees, and apply, and it will rotate it. Now notice that it rotated it like that because I've got my anchor point set to be the bottom left. So if I set that to be in the center and then try that again, it rotates around the center. Okay, so it's exactly what I showed you just a moment ago, but this is actually entering sizes. And then you've also got the shear, so you can actually shear it like I was doing here, to whatever size that you like. And you notice that the actual sizes move. Okay, when you're happy with that, either close it, or you can just left click this time, or you can press escape.